Let's get more on the blast in Ankara. Gulnur Aybet is the director of the Center for Security Studies at Bahçeşehir University, and she joins us now on the phone. Gulnur, thank you very much for joining us. Now, the explosion that occurred during rush hour in Ankara was apparently 300 meters away from a military complex. Do you think it's fair to say that this could have been the target?
Well, that's really difficult to speculate at the moment, but the target was definitely military because it was intended for the service buses of the military. So it was a military target, and whether it was specifically aimed at the service buses or intending to do some damage to the military complex nearby, it's difficult to say, but definitely we can say the target was military.
All right, Gulnur, help our viewers understand, how does this explosion, which happened earlier today, differ from that of the explosion, the deadliest explosion in Turkey's history that happened on October 11th that killed over 100 people? Because that happened during a peace rally, and now we're saying this could be, in terms of a target, a military complex. How does this attack differ from the one that happened in October?
Yeah, and also, we had the ISIS-related attack in Sultanahmet as well. So this, I think, is different from all of those in a sense that, ISIS had targeted for the very first time tourist areas with the Sultanahmet bombing. And before that, when it was ISIS targets, it was rallies that were predominantly dominated by Kurds or left-wing activists that ISIS see as associated with the YPG that they're fighting in Syria. Now, if it's the PKK, on the other hand, they have not really brought their assaults into the major Turkish cities. They have really confined their attacks on the military in the southeast. So when we think of military targets, the PKK are the only ones who target the military as opposed to ISIS. But then the PKK have never targeted the military in major Turkish cities before. So whoever has done it, it's actually a very new direction in the terror threat that Turkey faces right now.
Of course, this attack that happened earlier on Wednesday comes after Turkey's president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, said that they would continue shelling YPG targets, which Turkey says has direct links with the PKK in northern Syria, saying it's a matter of national security. So could there be a correlation here?
Yes, I mean, that's another thing that, one immediately thinks about, the correlation of what's happened here to Syria, because Turkey is quite serious about the national security concern emanating from the YPG, and they're very concerned about this corridor in Syria narrowing and therefore creating a geographically contiguous zone across the border. But on the other hand, we see a sort of increased Turkish activity short of going across the border, such as you mentioned, the shelling that's been going on for a while. But also today we've learned that there's some new air defense systems that have been deployed in the area as well. So whether this is an attack that has some kind of relation to that, and we know that the YPG and the PKK do work together, it's difficult to speculate. But on the other hand, we're getting reports that this is a vehicle, explosive vehicle, that caused this. It's not the PKK style to use explosive vehicles. They usually use roadside bombs. So again, this has left lots of question marks.
All right, Gulnur, tell us, what does this mean about the security situation in Turkey right now?
Well, I think, the security situation is going to be heightened, particularly in military areas, military complexes, because now we're seeing a new dimension in Turkey's multidimensional war on terror, including it's facing a two-front war on terror with the PKK and Daesh. And I think, military installations will come under greater security and more vigilance and awareness after this, because obviously they are now becoming a target in the main cities. This is new. This has never happened before.
Let's talk about this multi-dimensional effort that Turkey's security forces have conducted against terror organizations. We saw the attacks in Sultanahmet, where Daesh claimed responsibility. A popular tourist destination spot in Istanbul was targeted. Then you had the attacks in Ankara. How is Turkey going to be able to deal with this multi-pronged effort against terror?
Well, Turkey's been dealing with terror for a long time, so I think that's one of the things that you can look at and say that they have actually been, security forces have been quite adaptable in the past. If you look over the past 30 years to various different terrorist threats, and they have been dealing with terrorism for a very long time. But I think as new kinds of terror emerge, this is not just something that Turkey faces, but it's a much more global, wide problem. I mean, if you look at ISIS-related terror, these are virtual cells, which is a new thing for all of us to deal with. But with Turkey, I think, Turkey faces its own very specific problems with regard to terror, particularly when you think about the situation in Syria, how the situation is going to develop there with the YPG and the YPG's links to the PKK. I think this is the crucial area where Turkey will have to find new counterterrorism measures, if you like. And it's going to be tough, obviously, because it's very close to home in many ways. But lots of countries have dealt with this kind of terror for a long time, and we have a lot to learn from each other as well. So I don't think it's a problem unique to Turkey.
All right, I'm going to keep you on the telephone, but just to remind our viewers that a blast occurred in the Turkish capital earlier on Wednesday. According to the governor of Ankara, 5 people are confirmed dead and 10 injured in an attack on a military transport by a suspected bomb-laden vehicle. That's according to the governor of Ankara. Gulnur, I want to ask you, yes, we don't know who it is, but could this explosion strengthen President Erdogan's hand, especially after after today's comments where he accused some coalition partners?
Hello?
Gulnur Aybet, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I just lost the end of the trail of your sentence.
Let me repeat my question. When you look at today's explosion, do you think that this could strengthen President Erdogan's hand, especially after the comments he made today accusing some coalition partners in their relationship with the YPG?
To some extent, yes, because this is Turkey's been saying that it's facing a serious national security threat, and some coalition members have not been taking this on board as much as they should, and I think this is a very strong manifestation of the kind of serious national security threat that Turkey faces. So yes, in that sense, if you, and I'm sure, Turkey's allies will look at the broader picture in a much more earnest way after this attack and look at the serious security threat that Turkey faces, because after all, it's a NATO country. So its security is vitally important for all the other allies as well.
Okay, I'd just like to inform our viewers that Turkey's Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu has canceled a planned trip to Brussels and will be staying in the country, obviously, with regards to this attack. Now, coming back to you, Gulnur, now we've seen for months the Turkish security forces battle PKK terrorists in provinces like Diyarbakir, in the Sur district, as well as in Şırnak and Cizre. Obviously, one is, you mentioned that there was a change in tactic by the PKK, bringing their warfare into more urban areas. Do you think that this actually is a new chapter in this?
Yes, we don't know, though, if it's the PKK behind it. That's the other thing. But if it is, then yes, this is an entirely new chapter because, like I said, the military have traditionally been targeted by the PKK, not ISIS. But the PKK, first of all, have not used explosive vehicles before. They've used roadside bombs. They've used attacks with their own guerrillas, but never sort of explosive vehicles of this kind. and they've never taken the conflict into the major cities before, especially against military targets in the major cities before. So this would be an entire new tactic for them. And if it is them, then we can definitely link it to some kind of relation with the YPG and what's going on in Syria, and hence the need for a new tactic. But I think it's too early to talk about that, because until we know who's behind the attack, I mean, this is just a speculation as to what, might be. Yeah.
All right, Gulnur Aybet, the director of the Center for Security Studies at Bahçeşehir University, we thank you for joining us and for that analysis.